task ourselves with passing on traditions from the past onto future generations. Ideals, morals, mindsets. But how are we able to keep these traditions alive? How do we teach future generations? Tradition, a way to guide young men through their journey from being young adults to honorable men. This custom is known as a fraternity. Theta Chi Fraternity, an organization founded on the ideals of truth, temperance, tolerance, respect to alma mater, and to the community. Arthur Chase and Frederick Norton Freeman would pave the way for a day that will live on forever in the hearts of a group of men in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. On Saturday, May 11th, 1974, a rich history would begin. This was the start of the Eta Pi chapter of Theta Chi Fraternity.
So I pledged in the fall of 1987.
The interesting thing for me was I learned about the fraternity really in the fall of 1975.
Good times, good fraternity, good brotherhood. We had 7 of our pledge brothers. We would call them the 7-Ups, the paddles around here someplace. And it was just a good time. You know, the funny thing is, I came to East Stroudsburg and I didn't want to join any fraternities. I don't want to be Greek. I don't need that crap. And a bunch of friends were like, "Oh, I'm pledging Theta Chi." I'm like, "What? Yeah, you should come with us." I'm like, "All right, I'll go to Rush and check it out." Next thing you know, I had a bid. Next thing you know, okay, I'll do it, and I did it. So I had just left the football team. That was devastating to me. I played football all my life and didn't know what to do. So that fall semester, I joined rugby. Some of the rugby guys were like, "I'm going to pledge Theta Chi." I'm like, okay, I'll do that too. So I joined rugby, pledged Theta Chi. It was amazing, and my grades weren't that good that semester. But
I was in a geography class, and one of my classmates was Joe Diamore, who was already a member of Theta Chi. So we met in the fall of 1975, and I didn't know much. You know, I came to campus not knowing really anything about fraternities or Greek life or anything. But one of the things I noticed about them was they were incredibly welcoming, very friendly, and these guys just seemed to be involved in everything. You know, there were RAs, there were people in student government, they were on the yearbook staff, they were on the newspaper staff, there were athletes, brothers who played football. And I was impressed sort of in that sense that you could still have a whole full campus life. So I joined in the spring of '77 as a second semester junior. And again, we were involved with everything. The campus was booming, and we were involved with everything. And then, you know, there were great activities like the traditions of Greek Week. There was Greek Sing, Greek Talent Show, Greek Games, and intramurals. You know, we had guys who ran on the track team. We had guys who played on the hockey club. Puck and Little Puck and Scott McQuaig, they all played hockey. So we were really involved with everything, and that's why I became involved, and it's the best thing I ever did. It's the reason I come back to campus. It's the reason I'm still connected to people like Joe and a number of other people who I joined the fraternity with. And the amazing thing to me is it's bigger even than our fraternity. The friendships I made in the sororities and the other fraternities, these are people I see at homecoming who, you know, I haven't seen in 20 years or 25 years. And they'll come up to me and talk, and we'll catch up. And so that's kind of the early years, and that's where it all started. In 1974 it started. So our 50th is coming up, which is kind of fun to think about that next year, and looking forward to helping with that celebration.
what the fraternity means to me now, if you think about Theta Chi for life, I was telling you, my real brother died, and like the brothers that came out, it was amazing. I had one brother, pledge brother, who drove 3 hours after being up at 5 a.m. and driving a truck all day, and then drove 3 hours to wait 2 hours in line to see me for 5 minutes to drive 3 hours home and go back to work. So another brother, they just came out. Another one drove 2.5 hours to wait an hour in line to see me for 5 minutes, and so that meant a lot. And right after that, a lot of them reached out to me. My big brother was in Florida, so he obviously didn't come up. But a lot of phone calls, a lot of cards, and then the one brother who wasn't even part of my generation. He was here and he left and he came out to be a cop and then came back and finished his degree. But he was like, hey, let's all get together. And they would all just try to get together and rally around me. So
I think I'm more confident now than I was before. And the fraternity has given me opportunities. You know, when I was an undergraduate, although I was only a member for technically 1 year, I was the historian for a few weeks, and then the secretary resigned and I became the secretary. So I actually held an executive office even in my first year in the fraternity. It taught me how to work with other people in sort of a team effort. You know, the exec team, we would get together and Steve Engstadt was our president, and we'd talk about what we want to do and how we're going to do it. And then we'd have chapter meetings. And it early on, it got me to think about, what does it mean to be a part of a team? What do you do when conflict happens? What happens when brothers don't get along? What happens when it's not working? And then what happens when it's working? And I think those are gifts that the fraternity gave me. Leadership development training gave me leadership development training. And then later in my career, I got to chair the leadership ed committee on the national level and put together the School of Fraternity Practices and the chapter leadership conferences for all Theta Chi chapters.
you know, it's being part of something bigger than you. And even while we were in, it was our senior year spring break. Back then, spring break was 2 weeks. I was like, what are we gonna do for 2 whole weeks? So my pledge brother and I, the one who drove 3 hours, got in his car and and there was no cell phones, there's no social media. We got in the car and we were like, we drove to Penn State. We're like, hey, we're Theta Chi's. Hey, how you doing? Come on in. Had some beers, walked around Penn State, and then they put us up in their house. Next morning, we drove to Ohio State. Knocked on the door. Hey, how you doing? We're Theta Chi. You're Theta Chi? Okay. And then they did some of the tests, right? And we stayed there. We walked around the bars in Ohio State, stayed at their house. The next day, I got up, drove to Purdue. We saw the Theta Chi house there, but my real high school buddy, non-fraternity, was in a different fraternity. We stayed at his house for 2 days. And then we drove home. That was our spring break. So that bigger is part of something bigger. And I've met people at parties and, they're like, hey, where are you from? Are you from Boston? I'm like, no, I'm from someplace else. So, and it's just been helpful. You know, I'm surprised at how often we do get together. It's hard. You grow up, you get families, you have kids, you have jobs, you're working 50 hours a week. One of the funny things is I was pledging and my roommate at the time was like, what are you doing, Mike? You going to be really with these guys for, 10, 20 years down the road? Like, yeah, I am. And I don't see him that much anymore. So it's ironic. It is for life. So.
I think for me, I used to think that you were a member for life if you only if you contributed financially. That's what I used to think. I used to think, well, if you don't have money, how can you help? And then I soon realized that you can be a brother for life by volunteering the greatest gift I think you have, which is your time. And some people are able to give of their treasure, give of their financial resources, and some people are able to help with their time. And like I think of Mike with the chapter house, the work he's done as a sense that he's doing good for the chapter. But gosh, isn't that a great role model of the fact that after you're gone, you can still contribute and still make a difference? And that I would think that it also means that at any time in a brother's life, in a time of need, you're one of the people who responds and attempts to offer help and assistance and in essence, the helping hand. And, I've attended funerals, I've attended weddings, I've attended funerals for parents of brothers. I've called brothers who've had surgery. And I think you do all of those things because you believe that you can make it just a little bit better. So I think brotherhood expanded for me means that you don't only have to give financially, you can give of your time and of your talent.
The tradition's important. It's nice to see the paddles on the wall. Nice to have a house now. Thank you, Radcliffe, right? And I've been up here trying to help, I was standing on that roof out there, cutting the tree limbs with a pole chainsaw. Just trying to keep it alive and always having that core bunch of guys who are at the house, a place to go, a place to just come have a beer, talk with each other, that kind of thing. I don't know if I have a favorite Theta Chi, but there's so many. How can you say one? I mean, we did a road trip to Westchester for a fraternity regional conference. That was a blast. the road trip was there. It was great. And just, when you think about Theta Chi for life, there's no one memory, but I've been in countless weddings. I've been at countless weddings. I've had frat in my wedding. You can't pin it to one, but that's what makes it Theta Chi for life. And there's just a million of good times. And when we get together, we laugh about this and that, and who did something stupid or who did what, and barroom Olympics and different things. It's just fun stuff.
One of the most memorable times as an undergraduate was my last chapter meeting, because it was the last talk for the good. And I think that talk for the good lasted actually longer than the chapter meeting did.
I joined Theta Chi in the spring of 2020, and it's been a roller coaster. I've experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, but my brothers have been there for me through it all. I've had a few friends pass away, battled with depression, and endured failure after failure. One moment that forever sticks in my mind, though, is how everyone came to my side when I lost my friend Dylan. It was probably the lowest I felt in my entire life, but there wasn't a day that went by that one of them wasn't coming to see me, text me, or just invite me to go get some food so I wasn't alone. They were truly there for me, even if they couldn't understand what I was going through. Every single time that I got knocked down, one of them was there to pick me up. They've also been there for me in my best moments. For every single achievement, they were there to congratulate me. Anytime we're all together, we're laughing, we're joking, and just having a good time. I know that these guys will be there for me forever, but I've barely even scratched the surface of what it means to be a brother of this fraternity. One time, one of our alumni, Joe Diamore, he said to me, "The years you spend as an undergrad is just the dessert. The rest, now that's the main course." And he's right. Brotherhood is for life. No matter what happens in life, this fraternity is there for you. We have 600 members, and I know that they'll always have my back in any endeavor. Over the past few years, I've actually had the pleasure of meeting every brother from the generations. From the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. Each meeting brought a new tradition, lesson, or conversation that I carry with me today. You see, that's what being in a fraternity is about. That's why two men started this great organization on a cold April day. To pass on to new generations what was learned in the old. In my young life, I still have a lot more hurdles to jump over, a lot more failures to endure, and even more times of getting knocked down. But if this fraternity's taught me anything, it is to keep pushing forward. One of the most impactful men I've met in my time here is Doc Leland. He once said, "It hasn't been limited to me as Theta Chi for life, but Theta Chi as life." And as always, Doc hit it right on the money. We may be a brother for life, but what it comes down to, what you actually get out of this fraternity, is what you give to it is what you get. And that's why we join. That's why we keep coming back, and that's why we give back. Theta Chi is more than an organization, more than just a fraternity. It's a family. It is brotherhood.